Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Shmuley Show. I hope I'm looking summary for you. I love the summer. Why can't it last the whole year? And then some people would say because then you wouldn't appreciate summer when it came, or you couldn't ski. I'm getting old anyway, so everyone tells me I shouldn't be skiing. I fell off a bike, broke something just last week. My whole body's falling apart. But my freaking mind, man, is still the size of Jupiter, thank God. I am banging away at all the hatred in the world, trying to unify us, but we're not going to stop antisemitism, bigotry, racism without taking down the bad guys. We have to destroy them reputationally. Today I ask the ultimate question, why does the world hate Jews so much? And for those of you who are not Jewish, this really is the canary in the coal mine question. It doesn't just apply to Jews, it applies to you. Because the hatred of the Jews is the mother of all hatreds. Bigotry against the Jews is the mother of all bigotry. So that's why, and my black brothers and sisters understood that when they were enslaved in the South, they compared themselves to the ancient Israelites. It was a precedent for slavery, and it was Pharaoh and Moses and the Israelites. But here's what's really interesting. When you ask the question, why does everyone hate the Jews? You're also asking, what about the people who once loved Jews, as early as a year ago, and who are now the biggest anti-Semites in America? Let's take some examples. Tucker Carlson. It would be too easy just to say that Tucker Carlson is just a Qatari agent. He won't answer if he's getting Qatari money. But when he was on Fox, he was very pro-Israel when he was paid by Rupert Murdoch. Now, he said 10 days ago that, without any evidence whatsoever, that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent. The ultimate anti-Semitic slur, typical tropes, etc. Jews are pedophiles, Jews are rapists. By the way, whenever you want to go after a group, you always go after their sexuality, and you always decide to call them rapists. So, for example, Emmett Till, which is arguably the most famous, infamous murder in the entire civil rights movement, with the exception of Martin Luther King himself, he was 14 years old. He was visiting from the north, from Chicago, the deep south with his cousins, and he happened to just whistle. He just whistled. Or they say he whistled when he bought something from a store run by a white woman. He was taken by the Klan. They cut his penis off. They shoved it in his mouth, a 14-year-old boy, because they said this 14-year-old boy was interested in this married white woman. And notice that in Germany, the same thing the Nazis said, the Jewish men want to defile your beautiful Aryan women, and the Jews with their hook noses and with all their diseases, they're going to... And then black men, of course, I was just reading this incredible book about John Brown and the 1859 attack on the Harper's Ferry arsenal that was put down by Robert E. Lee when he was still a federal officer, and which in many ways precipitated the Civil War. It was the same thing. That if there's an insurrection on the part of blacks in the South, they're going to come and rape your white women. So Tucker Carlson saying that Jeffrey Epstein, is trying to defile your women, your 50-year-old woman, is typical anti-Semitism. But Carlson was a pro-Israel guy on Fox. How did he change? Look at people talk to me about Candace Owens. Candace Owens rose through the ranks of my friend Dennis Prager. May God give him a refuah shleima, or recovery. He's not feeling well. Rose through the ranks of Ben Shapiro, who promoted her, made millions of dollars off of her, has never criticized her till today. But she started praising Hitler in 2019. He did nothing about it. I guess there was too much cash involved. But she was once a darling of the pro-Israel movement. Today, she's a satanic, deranged, unhinged anti-Semite. Why did people change so much? A few minutes ago, Johnny, who's sitting here with me, who's a co-producer of our show, showed me a text from Dan Bilzerian, who has, 30 million followers? 30 million followers. Now, this guy, Dan Bilzerian, who I don't know, is supposed to be part of the whole new manosphere, teaching you how to be a guy, and teaching you how to be so cool, and teaching you how to be so strong. Yet that guy, I'm 5'5". What's Dan Bilzerian? 6 foot something, probably? I'm a giant of stature, obviously, one of the great men of history, but physically, I'm not exactly what one would call imposing. The guy's afraid of me. He actually wrote, can we see the text? It'd be great. Dan Bilzerian is afraid to frickin' debate me. This is what he wrote. So Johnny wrote to him directly and said, hey, Shmuley's going to debate you, because he commented. He approached us. He commented on my platform. And he wrote, I'm not going to platform that piece of SHIT Jew, but we can do it on someone else's. Here you have Dan Bilzerian giving an excuse, because he's a coward, like most anti-Semites. He's not going to debate me. You're afraid, and you're part of the manosphere. But here's a question. All of these people who changed their position on Jews and were once very pro-Israel, Tucker Carlson, Clandis Ovens, first black Grand Wizard of the Klan, wants to send all Jews to the ovens, Clandis Ovens, they've all changed. Now, why? And here's the thing. Hating Jews is big business. Hating Jews is the guarantee that you're going to get a huge amount of followers. If I came out on the show as anti-Amish, I wouldn't get 1 follower. If I came out on the show as anti-Buddhist, I'd get 3 followers. And happy 90th birthday, by the way, to the Dalai Lama, who I gave a speech with in Birmingham, Alabama about a decade ago. We posted that. If I came out across even as anti-Catholic, okay, I might get a couple, anti-Protestant. If you hate Jews, it's the quickest way to build your following. So Clandis Ovens, who was fired by Ben Shapiro and had to start all over again, she needed to indulge every anti-Semitic conspiracy theory just to make sure that her show succeeded. Because hating Jews works. It has always worked. How did Hitler rise to power? They're hating Jews. I can go through the whole list of anyone who's kind of famous or infamous in the world. They hate Jews. Why do we talk about Iran so much? It's a third world country with a despotic government. They're only in the news because they hate Jews. The Emir of Qatar, one of the biggest anti-Semites of all, he plays all sides. He's pro-Western, but he hates Jews. He hosts the megalomaniacal leaders of Hamas, who are all billionaires. So the hating Jew thing keeps him in the news. If he was neutral on Israel, if he wasn't supporting Hamas, who the hell would hear of Qatar, which is the size of this studio that I'm broadcasting from? Yeah, he's very rich. There's a lot of very rich people. They don't get the same amount of diplomatic credibility that the Emir of Qatar gets. Tucker Carlson trades in anti-Semitic tropes because he was fired from Fox and he needs followers. And Jews are news, and hating Jews is the ultimate news. Hitler was a flea-infested vagabond living in Vienna, then joined the German army in the Second World War. He was a total loser. He had 3 platforms, Hitler. There are only 3 platforms of Nazism. Maybe, and in its simplicity, that's part of its power. There are 3 platforms. I'll get to the most important one third. Platform number 1 is we were stabbed in the back in 1914. At the military in 1918. We were stabbed in the back. The politicians sold out the German army. We should have defeated the Allies. And the Allies imposed a terrible punitive peace at the Treaty of Versailles. That was 1. Number 2 was Lebensraum. We, the German master race of Aryans, need more space. Germany is not big enough, so we need space to the east. We have to conquer Poland. We have to conquer Russia, etc. How exciting a platform is that? Are you going to become the Chancellor of Germany when you're a total flea-infested, vagabond, loser nut? No, it was the 3rd platform. I hate the Jews. I hate the Jews. We'll expel the Jews. We'll kill the Jews. We'll exterminate the Jews. And the people went, rah, 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 rah. Hating Jews is one of the quickest paths to power. And it's one of the reasons that Islamists have so much publicity. If they didn't kill Jews, hate Jews, like October 7th, Hamas is a corrupt non-entity that kills Jews and therefore dominates world headlines. And because they're holding 55 Jews hostage, they are able to continue to dominate world headlines. We have the Pope speaking about them yesterday. Pope Leo is the first American Pope. God bless him. But honestly, I met new and a little bit in love, but especially I loved Pope Benedict. He was forced to resign primarily over all the sex abuse cases in the church, which he could no longer control, and for which he was held largely responsible. By the way, I hope that Clandis Ovens hears that. Yesterday, Clandis was writing that Jews are all raping kids in Israel. She forgot the greatest child molestation scandal of all time is among Catholics, and she claims to be Catholic. Of course, she's not a Catholic. She's a total fraud, but Clandis, just think about that as you try and shove us Jews into the ovens. But Pope Leo said, we need a ceasefire, end of the war in Gaza. Holy Father, you didn't even call for the release of the hostages. The war would be over if they released the hostages and surrendered. But you didn't say that once, Holy Father. You cannot stop war without defeating evil, and Hamas is evil because they hate Jews and have a genocidal charter to kill Jews, and that's what keeps you, the most influential man alive, talking about them. Hating Jews is power. Hating Jews is profit. Hating Jews is publicity. For all of you whose businesses are failing, if you have a haberdashery and you're not selling enough suits, if you have a car wash and you're not getting enough clients, all you got to do is put out a giant sign, I hate Israel or free Palestine, and you're going to have customers galore tomorrow. By the way, I get a cut. It's my idea. Because hating Jews is the quickest path to profit. But why? Why the hell do so many people enjoy hating our guts? I'll tell you why. A lot of people say it's because they're jealous of us. People are very jealous of the Jews. Jews are so rich. Jews are so materially comfortable. That's garbage. Jews have only had a couple of bucks. First of all, tons of Jews that I know are not rich at all. There are some Jewish billionaires. There's many more non-Jewish billionaires. Elon Musk ain't Jewish. Mark Zuckerberg is. Let's go through all the Jewish. The Koch brothers are not Jewish. Oprah's a billionaire, amazing woman, black Christian woman. She's not Jewish. Does anyone hate her out of jealousy? We Jews had no money until after the Second World War, when after the Holocaust, we felt that the only way we could ensure that a second Holocaust did not happen is having kind of financial muscle and making sure that we could have political action groups, making sure we could have better lives for our children. Before that, the Jews lived in the shtetl. Are any of you guys jealous of Tevye the milkman's frickin', milk cow? Are you jealous of his horse? We had no money, so it can't be jealousy. The reason the Jews are hated is that we are God's chosen nation on earth to preach against the hatred of Hamas, to preach against the corruption of the Emir of Qatar, to preach against the disgusting racism of the Klan. We are the ones who taught the world that every black man and every white man is exactly the same, that every black child and every white child is exactly the same. And the world killed us for that message. The Jews are, the word Mount Sinai means mountain of hatred, quite literally. Little do these hospitals realize when you say Mount Sinai Medical Center, it literally means the word sinah in Hebrew means hatred. Anyone who reads Hebrew knows. Do you ever think about that? Mount Sinai Medical Center, they don't even realize they're advertising Mountain of Hatred Hospital. Come and be treated at the Mountain of Hatred. But why did God call the place where the 10 Commandments were given, where God gave a moral code? Don't steal, don't be jealous, don't rattle and talk and gossip about people, don't commit adultery, don't murder, etc., don't kidnap. Why did he give it on the Mountain of Hatred? Why was it called? Because that's when the Jews started being hated. All the people who hate our guts, they are all evil. They are all wicked. You will not find one moral anti-Semite. They don't exist. Let me repeat that. You will never find a moral anti-Semite. Hitler wasn't evil because he hated the Jews. That, of course, compounded it infinitely. Hitler was evil because he gassed the disabled children. That's how they experimented first on poison gas and eventually used it on the Jews. Find me one moral anti-Semite. Someone who's good in every area except they hate the Jews. Doesn't exist. They are wicked, cruel, and evil in every area, or lunatics. And that's why they hate the Jews. Because we are the ones who serve as the bulwark against their evil. We are the ones carrying this message that there's a God and you can't get away with every damn thing you want. That you're not frickin' God, that you don't create the rules, that you don't create the laws, that you don't create the ethics, that you don't create morality. It is not man-made, it is God-given, and they will kill us for it. Hitler's war was not primarily against Churchill or Roosevelt or Stalin. They could field tanks against him, or B-17 bombers, or what was the last one that dropped the atomic bomb? B-21 super fortresses. They could field weaponry against them. But the Jews fielded even something more important. It was called God. Morality. Hitler understood that unless he exterminated the people who said that what he was doing was unacceptable, then it would forever remain unacceptable. He had to kill the Jews first. And that's what Lucy Davidovich captured so brilliantly in one of the first major books on the Holocaust in the 1970s. I read it. It was called The War Against the Jews. The war was not against the Allies. It was not against Britain. It was not against America. First and foremost, it was against the Jews. Hitler's soldiers were starving and freezing in Stalingrad because Field Marshal Paulus is begging. He would ultimately surrender with 93,000 troops. Hitler told him to kill himself. He refused. Paulus is begging Hitler after he's cut off in Stalingrad by the Soviet Red Army. He's begging for, like, give us some freaking food. Give us some winter clothing. Give us some coats. And Hitler's response is, well, right now, the trains are taking the Jews to Auschwitz. We're busy. The war was against the Jews first, before even the Soviets. Now let's go through them one by one, and you'll see what wicked, evil people these are. Look at number one anti-Semite in America, Candace Owens. Is she a moral person who only hates the Jews? Candace hates blacks more than she hates Jews. Candace Owens says that that George Floyd deserved to die, or faked to die, or died of fentanyl. And I don't care if George Floyd was the most righteous man that ever lived or had a criminal record. A guy does not die in America for passing a $20 forged bill with a cop standing nonchalantly over his neck while he's screaming, "I can't breathe," and looking around while the guy frickin' dies. But for Candace, because she's frickin' Klan, she hates her own people of her own color, far more than she hates the Jews. She is wicked and evil, not just the Jews. She hates everybody. She's a conspiracy theorist. That proves my point. My point is this: the Jews are hated because they're God's witnesses. They bear the message of the Ten Commandments. Kill the messenger, you kill the Ten Commandments. And then Candace Owens can get away with whatever she wants. She can curse out everyone. The Jews stand in her way because we're moral. So she has to say we're not moral, we're pedophiles, we're Jeffrey Epstein, Now let's go to Tucker Carlson. You think Tucker Carlson has any kind of morality, any kind of integrity, but he just simply hates Israel and hates Jews? Tucker Carlson started as a liberal. He was in MSNBC. Then he went to the Standard, owned by Murdoch. Now he's a conservative. Then he went to CNN, and he's a conservative position. Fox, again, now he's like a total nut off on his own. It's all where the money is. You can buy and sell him for. He's not cheap. I'll give him that. He's not cheap. If Qatar is buying him, we're allowed to ask that, right, Tucker? God, when he does that, it's like kind of freaks me out. I'm allowed to ask. Are we allowed? Tucker Carlson is a viper. He's the serpent in Eden. He slithers, he crawls, he lies. Find me one moral anti-Semite. And it's not that I'm saying if you're an anti-Semite, you're immediately immoral. Find me one example of someone in history who hated the Jews, but they were exemplary in the rest of their life. It doesn't exist. They were always reptilian, Neanderthals, evil, wicked, cruel, corrupt, thieves. Look what Hamas does to its own people. I mean, if Israel didn't exist, God forbid, right next door to Israel, you have Hamas. If Israel didn't exist, God forbid, Hamas would still be doing honor killings against Palestinian girls because they talked to a boy. They would still be putting freaking tires around their necks and burning them alive. They would still be shooting pregnant women who dared demonstrate against them. Hamas is vile to the Arabs. Look at every genocidal maniac who's tried to look at Ferdinand. I'll go all the way back to the Spanish expulsion. Spanish Inquisition. Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, tyrants. You think that their people had any rights whatsoever? They just plundered all of the peasants' money and took it. Stalin, who hated the Jews, and in the strange ironies of history, ultimately becomes the liberator of Auschwitz, which blows your mind. Stalin hated the Jews, but he killed 40 million Russians. He was a freaking evil guy. So, why do people profit off anti-Semitism? Why is anti-Semitism so immediately productive? Why can Candace Owens go from being fired by Ben Shapiro, who's a coward, by the way, won't even speak out against her because he's afraid of being sued? Yeah, Ben, IDF soldiers are risking their lives against Hezbollah and Hamas, and you're afraid of a freaking piece of paper arriving, via email that you're being sued. You could afford a couple of lawyers and speak out against her disgusting anti-Semitism. She's your Frankensteinian monster. You created her, but you're a freaking coward. That's something else. And by the way, I don't believe this whole thing that Jews should not criticize other Jews. That's what the Arabs believe in. My Arab brothers and sisters, Arabs and Muslims never criticize one another. That's what leads to corruption. When you're not prepared to call out your own community when it makes mistakes. I am called up by my community all the time. And the Talmud says brilliantly that I have learned much from my fans, and even more from my critics. So Ben, learn something and speak out against your Frankensteining creation clandestine ovens. But why does anti-Semitism lead to so many followers? A Neanderthal like Dan Bilzerian, who's afraid to debate me, has 16 million followers. A numbskull, empty-headed knuckle-dragger has 16 million followers. Because these people want a new world order. They don't want the Judeo-Christian order of what Moses taught, that you have to care for the widow and the orphan and the poor and the disadvantaged. They don't want to hear what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, that blessed are the peacemakers. They want war. They want dominance. They want to date women and rape women. Half of these anti-Semites online are being charged with frickin' rape. They want to dominate. I love the manosphere. Just disgusting. The whole manosphere makes me want to puke and vomit. These aren't real men. That's why they won't debate me. They're all cowards. The manosphere is all about being a really tough guy and treating women like utter crap. And that's what the Hamas October 7th thing was. It wasn't just about killing Jews. It was first about humiliating and violating the women. It was first about raping them. It was about raping them and shooting them in always the genitals. It was to show we're real men, we Hamas thugs. Hating Jews is big business because it's creating a new world order that has no moral business. It has no moral ethics. It has no moral foundation. And we, the Jews, are the frickin' bulwark. And this man sitting in front of you, small and mighty, is going to be that bulwark. I'm going to speak out again. And by the way, that's why my work is focused, not just on making sure that Jews are protected, but the black community is protected. My greatest hero of the 20th century in America is the greatest American that lived throughout the 20th century. And that was Martin Luther King Jr., whose speeches I memorized, who took our Bible, the Hebrew Bible, and made it into a living civil rights manifesto from the book of Micah and Isaiah and Jeremiah, that people have worth and frickin' dignity. And the sandwich board signs that were worn in Memphis in his last marches before he was killed on April 4th, 1968. I am a man. That comes from the Bible, chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, that God created every human being in his image. Dan Bilzerian wants to take that down. Tucker Carlson wants to take that down. Qatar wants to take that down. Hamas wants to take that down. Iran especially wants to take that down. And Clandis ovens. First ever. What an achievement. Clandis, I got to give it to you. First of all, to be a woman wizard of the clan, that's freaking incredible. Boy, are you a guy. And you keep on saying that the First Lady of France is a guy. You're the ultimate guy, Clandis. You're the first female wizard of the clan. And you did it being black. That's even more impressive. Self-hating, anti-Semitic, self-hating black woman who becomes clan. And then ovens. You want to shove us in the ovens. Because you know what, Clandis? When we are nothing but a big pile of frickin' ash, just blown hither and thither by the wind, then we cannot object to what a reptilian scumbag you are with your hatred, with your loathing, with your reptilian, poisonous, vile, inhuman hatred. You know that we alone can stop you, so you hate us. But we're not going to give the world over to people like you. You know, the Second World War, the greatest generation. Why were they the greatest generation? They were the greatest generation because they're the ones who stopped Hitler. They're the ones who restored the Judeo-Christian order. And I want to finish by saying to all my Muslim brothers and sisters, a lot of you may think, let's join on the bandwagon. If I'm at Columbia and school's coming up in a month, if I'm at Columbia, if I'm at Tulane, if I'm at Brown, if I'm at UCLA, if I join the Free Palestine now just means Heil Hitler. That's all it is. It's the new Heil Hitler. Let me repeat. Free Palestine doesn't care a freaking damn about. No one knows which river, which sea. They are the biggest. It's just Heil Hitler. It's just kill all the Jews. I'm stating categorically, Free Palestine is just Heil Hitler. A lot of you are about to go back to school, the young people, and thinking, that's how I become popular. If I join these protests and everything, I have a conscience. My friends are going to like me. You don't know where that you can't find Israel on a map. You have no idea what the Sykes-Picot Agreement was. You have no idea about the 1947 UN Partition Agreement. You've never heard of the Peel Commission. I could go on. You're so ignorant, it's embarrassing, even as you go to Ivy League universities. But you'll do it because it'll make you popular, because hating Jews, it'll make you popular in certain circles. But remember what Jesus said, who was a Jew. What does it profit a man to earn the whole world, become the most popular person on campus, king on campus. If you have to sell your soul, if you become like Candace Owens, if you become like Tucker Carlson, if you could be bought allegedly by Middle Eastern governments, if you have no frickin' heart, if you have no frickin' soul, if you have no humanity, if you have no decency, if there's no image of God on you, to all the students going back to school, is this who you want to be? A super rich billionaire who's hate-filled and is another damn anti-Semite? Someone who hates the Jews because they hate the moral order? They hate God's word? They hate the Ten Commandments? Is that really what you want? Is that why you're making money? Will that make you happy? Does Candace Owens look happy to you, or with her conspiracy a day as she goes after, as this strange, weird woman obsesses over the genitalia of the First Lady of France? As Candace Owens now lives inside the crotch of the First Lady of France, as Candace Owens thinks daily, which is pretty gross when you think about it, as Candace Owens puts all her imagination, all of her time, and prepared to be sued by the First Lady of France because she lives inside her female genital organs, is that who you want to be? Does Candace look happy to you? Does Tucker Carlson look happy to you? With his, is this normal when you want to, like, is this real laughter? I think we could just ask questions. Isn't Jeffrey Epstein a Jew? Isn't Jeffrey Epstein a Muslim? Does that look normal to you? Is that how you want to end up? Because I'll tell you one final thing. Yeah, hating Jews may make you popular, and hating Jews may make you money, it may get you a lot of followers, but it also F's you up, man. Hating Jews makes you sick in the head, paranoid, and you become a lunatic. Like Candace Owens, like Tucker Carlson, like Dan Bilzerian. It ultimately makes you sick, like all those 3,000 disgusting, vile terrorists who crossed Israel on October 7th and had to shoot women in the genitals and cut off their breasts and play volleyball with their cut off breasts in order to feel like they were real men. Mark my words as I finish this show. Candace Owens is going to self-destruct. Guaranteed. It's a question of when. A month, a year, maybe 5 years. Tucker Carlson definitely can. All anti-Semites eventually self-destruct. It's just a question of whether, how many people they hurt in the meantime, and more importantly, whether before they self-destruct, whether you, every person listening to me, whether you had a hand in fighting hatred, fighting racism, fighting anti-Semitism. The Klan self-destructed. Bull Connor self-destructed. It's just a question of whether you will be a moral human being who believes in I am the Lord your God. You should love no other gods before me. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't commit adultery, honor your marriage vows, don't be jealous of people, etc. Don't just live your life coveting other people, enjoy what you have. Be a good parent. That's the question. God bless you.